Have you ever laughed at someone because of what they wore or where they came from? Be careful, because life has a way of turning the tables. This is the story of Nadia, the girl they laughed at. In a quiet African village, where tall baobab trees stretched into the sky and the earth glowed red beneath the sun, lived a young girl named Nadia. Her family was among the poorest in the village. Her father had died when she was small, and her mother struggled daily, farming small patches of land just to keep food on their table. Nadia owned only one faded dress, patched in many places, and a pair of sandals made from old tires. Each morning, as the other children walked to school in neat uniforms, their laughter floating like music in the air, Nadia walked behind them. She kept her eyes low, clutching her tattered books to her chest, hoping no one would notice the holes in her clothes. But they always noticed. "Look at her rags," one child shouted. "She smells like smoke from the cooking fire," another jeered. The laughter spread, sharp and cruel, echoing in Nadia's ears long after she had walked away. Nadia never cried in front of them. She swallowed her shame and walked on. But at night, when the moonlight fell softly on her mat, she let her tears fall. Her pillow was often wet with sorrow, but through her tears she whispered the same words. "One day, they will see me differently." Despite the mockery, Nadia was determined. She helped her mother in the fields, carrying water from the river and selling small bundles of firewood in the market. Yet, no matter how tired she was, she always found time to study by the weak flame of an oil lamp. Her grandmother often sat beside her, telling her old stories. Stories about survival, wisdom, and hope. One night, when the lamp flickered low, her grandmother leaned close and said, "Nadia, the world will not always see your worth, but you must never doubt it. A river that is mocked for being small may one day flood and save the land. Remember what I teach you. About water, about seeds, about patience. These things may save your people one day." Nadia held on to those words. Years passed, and the children grew, but the laughter never stopped. Even as she became a young woman, the whispers followed her. She will always be poor. She will always be nothing. Then came the drought. The rains failed. The sun grew harsh, cracking the earth. Rivers dried up, and crops withered in the fields. Hunger swept through the village. Mothers wept as their children cried for food. The strong grew weak, and the proud became desperate. For the first time, the ones who mocked Nadia no longer laughed. Their eyes were hollow with fear. Nadia watched silently. She too felt the gnawing pain of hunger, but she remembered her grandmother's words. She remembered the old clay pots buried deep in the earth, the seeds preserved in hidden places, and the ancient methods of survival. One evening, as the village gathered in despair beneath the great baobab tree, Nadia stood and spoke. Her voice trembled at first, but then it grew steady. "We can survive this, but we must work together. I know how to find water hidden in the earth. I know how to plant seeds that will grow even in little rain. If you listen, we can live." At first there was silence, then murmurs of doubt. "Her? What does she know?" one man scoffed. "She's just the poor girl we laughed at," another muttered. But hunger silenced pride. Slowly, a few villagers followed Nadia as she began to dig in the dry ground. And then, to their amazement, water seeped up. Clay pots filled with water stored long ago were brought to light. She showed them how to plant hardy seeds, how to shade crops with woven mats, how to share food equally so no family was left behind. Day by day, the village began to change. Weeks passed. Tiny green shoots pushed through the cracked soil. The fields slowly turned from brown to green. Children, once weak, found laughter again. Real laughter this time, filled with joy, not cruelty. The villagers began to look at Nadia differently, no longer with mockery, but with respect. The girl they had laughed at was now the girl who gave them hope. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with gold and crimson, the villagers gathered at Nadia's home. Among them was a woman who, years ago, had been one of Nadia's loudest tormentors. She stepped forward, tears streaming down her face, and fell to her knees. "Nadia," she whispered, "forgive us. We mocked your clothes. We mocked your poverty. We called you nothing. But today, we live because of you. You are more than all of us." Nadia's eyes softened. She lifted the woman gently to her feet and said, "Do not be ashamed. Life is the greatest teacher. Let this be our lesson. Never laugh at someone's struggle, because tomorrow may reveal their greatness. The villagers wept, not with sorrow this time, but with gratitude. From that day on, the village was never the same. They no longer judged one another by clothes or wealth. They remembered Nadia's resilience, and they taught their children to see beyond appearances. Her story became a legend, told around fires, whispered beneath starlit skies, passed from one generation to the next. And Nadia, she grew into a leader, not by force, but by example. The girl they had laughed at became the woman they all admired. And so the story of Nadia reminds us all: do not mock the poor, the weak, or the different. For greatness often hides in the most unlikely places. The one you laugh at today may be the one who saves you tomorrow. If this story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more African folktales, and remember, true strength often begins in silence, but it always finds its voice.